to be a part of the top 10% earners in this country, you need at least $150,000 a year salary. That's before taxes. So there's a lot of ways to get there. One of the ways is to work for the federal government. Now, it's been a wild year. I'll agree to that. It's been chaotic, but it's still possible. And as the hiring freeze sets to lift here shortly, it's going to provide a lot more opportunities. So what does it take to get a $150,000 a year salary? Well, you need to be a GS-14 in most cities. You can look at big cities like Austin, Chicago, DC, Los Angeles. A GS-14, step 3, step 4, it'll get you there. Now the GS pay chart goes from 1 to 15. So 14 is kind of high up there. But you can do it with no college at all. There's some people that will jump up and down and turn red in the face saying that you need to have a college degree or a master's degree. But a lot of positions, they do not require it. It depends on the job series and what the job announcement is. Because there are plenty of people that are at GS-14, GS-15, and even SES that do not have a college degree. Now, in some cities, you can actually hit $150,000 a year at GS-13. But today, I'm looking at GS-14. I'm looking at open to the public so you and everyone you know can apply to it. And I'm also looking at jobs that do not require any college education. So the first one is a program manager in logistics at the Department of Homeland Security. The salary goes up to $185,000 a year, and it's in DC. The reason this position is still hiring, even though we're in a freeze right now, it's in the CBP, the Customs and Border Protection Agency. So somebody has made the connection between immigration enforcement and this position, this program manager position. They've made the connection so they're allowed to hire. They're allowed to fill it. So what does it take? If you have been a program manager, a project manager, if you have been a facility manager, you probably have what it takes. They're looking for 12 months of specialized experience. You do not need a PMP. I know a lot of people say PMPs are great, and there's a place for them, sure, but you do not need a PMP. You don't need an MBA. You do not even need a college degree. So the next one is a budget analyst in the Department of Air Force. This job is in Fort Meade, Maryland, which is in between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. So the salary for this one goes up to $156,000 a year. The position is probably listed as a national security position. That's why it's exempted. That's why they can still hire for this job. Essentially, what you need to do this job, you need experience with budget. You need exposure to financials, how to manage a budget. Can you prove that? Have you been a financial manager, a budget manager? That would help you out a lot. This is in the 0560 job series, and a lot of people get confused with this because they assume when they hear the word finance or budget, they just naturally assume, well, I must need a CPA or I must need a business degree. You do not. And I have met people that were able to use volunteer experience in order to prove that they know how to manage a budget because they manage like a nonprofit budget or they manage their church's budget and they've had multiple years analyzing spreadsheets or databases and making the numbers match up. So they were able to prove that. They put it on their resume. They were able to get the job. All right, so the next one is an information technology specialist in ICE with a salary that goes all the way up to $185,000 a year. This is an InfoSec job, information security. You're protecting computer systems. You're protecting databases. You're protecting networks. Now, when people think of information security, they're thinking, I need the Security Plus certification from CompTIA, or I need another certification. You don't need it for this position. Here's the deal with IT jobs in the government. They fall under 2210 as the job series. If there is a requirement for the position, oftentimes they hire you and the government provides the training and they pay for you to take the certification. There could be a requirement. Looking at this job announcement, there was none. Now, this position is under the direct hiring authority, meaning that they really need you for one. They really need someone to fill this slot that's qualified. And it also means that they're not even going to consider veterans' preference. So if you're a veteran, thank you for your service, but they're not going to consider it when they're trying to hire and put a person in the seat for this position. Now, listen, I'm not saying that it's easy to get any of these positions. I'm not saying it's easy to become a GS-14. It is difficult. Like any well-paying job that comes with benefits, there's going to be competition and it's going to be difficult to get. But what a lot of people have done in the past is they apply 1, 2, 3 times, maybe several times. They apply, they don't get anywhere, and they just assume it's impossible. So anytime somebody mentions it, what about a federal government job? They're like, oh no, that's a racket, that's a scam, it doesn't exist. You got to know somebody. You need to know somebody or you're never going to get in. And that's the story they tell to themselves to justify why they were not able to get in. Now, what about the political climate? It's difficult out there, right? There's benefits that are being jeopardized. There's cuts. People are getting pushed out of agencies. No matter who's leading this country, the country will need a federal workforce. There are so many services, critical services, that the government provides to the people of this country. To include, just to give a brief example, the Federal Aviation Administration, air traffic controllers, Department of Transportation, the highways, veterans, Social Security Administration, Department of Justice, HUD. There's so many agencies that benefit the public. Even if you want to cut it down, sure, cut it down, make it smaller. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as as long as you're not jeopardizing any of the services on the back end, which is debatable right now, but at the end of the day, you will still need a federal workforce in this country. Also keep in mind that there's a 2-page resume limit. You can't go over the 2 pages. If you go 1 sentence over the 2 pages, you're not within standard. You can disqualify yourself by doing that. So if you have any intentions, if you think that it's a possibility that later this year or next year you will apply to a federal government job, go ahead and get your resume in the 2-page format. I believe you really only have about 8 days left to get it done and then upload it onto usajobs.gov. Also, remember that the Direct Hiring Authority, if you see a job with DHA, Direct Hiring Authority, or if it mentions Direct Hiring Authority, that's a key indicator. That means they're prioritizing that position to get hired, meaning they really want someone in that position. So that's an indicator. Another indicator is if they're offering a bonus, a recruitment incentive. And speaking of that, right now they're offering tens of thousands of dollars for certain government jobs. In one case, it's $30,000. In another case, it's $50,000. So if you want to know what positions those are, maybe you might be interested, or maybe you know somebody who could be interested and eligible for the position. So if you want that information, check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.